Recording stopped.
We have quorum, so Mike, do you have any objection to starting?
I'm here on time.
Recording in progress.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call the Housing and Economic Development Committee for Wednesday, April 5th, 2023 to order. It is 3:01. We do have with us in the chamber Mike Sigler, Ann Koreman, and myself. So we're going to get started on the meeting, and I'm sure we'll have a few other legislators join us shortly. I do want to kick off with a public comment. We do have one person here for public comment. If anybody else is here for public comment, if they want to fill out a blue card and bring it in. And we don't have anybody, Taylor, online, correct? So we do have Teresa Alt with us today who would like to speak. And Teresa, I know you're you're familiar with the rules and process for public comment. So go ahead and give your 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
Yes, is this on? No? Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm Teresa Alt of Eddy Street in Collegetown, and I noticed on the agenda you have the IAED, the IDA. I see Heather here, and I am sure that she will tell you that if the IDA was not abating our taxes, developers wouldn't build in this community. Well, the view from Collegetown, which is outside of the CTAP zone, the zone where these tax abatements are allowed, they build and build and build all the time. They seem to find the financing to do it when that's the way to do it. Obviously, if they're offered free money, they'll take it. The other thing that I want to mention is that you have tourism on the agenda, and I just want to remind you that tourism mostly produces low-wage service jobs. So please remember that. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Thanks for coming to public comment today. I do have one change to the agenda. I'd like to add to the agenda Resolution ID 11599 entitled Resolution Authorizing the 2023 New York State Department of Labor and the Office of Employment and Training Ancillary Agreement. That will go as number 12 on the agenda, and then we'll do committee members' reports and adjournment after that. Just a quick note on timing today. We do have a relatively robust agenda with a number of different presenters. So I am going to try to keep time a little bit more rigidly than normal. So if we can keep our comments and discussion pertinent to the topic at hand and keep moving along on the agenda, that would be great. But I'll give everybody sort of a little bit of a heads up before their time starts, how much time we've allocated for those presentations. We do have the minutes. Oh, sorry. Does anybody have any objection to the addition to the agenda? All right. Seeing no objection, we'll add that to the agenda. The next one is the minutes approval. We have the minutes from March 9th, 2023.
I'll move that.
Yeah, the move by Ann. Is there a second? There's a second by Mike Sigler. There's just one note, and hopefully this is friendly. Heather McDaniel is listed as the TCIDA president and should be listed as the IAED president. Correct, Heather? Great. All right. So if that's friendly to the mover and second, great. All those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. Great. Next one, we have advisory board appointments. Advisory board appointments ID 11561. Let me move to my paper. This is the Strategic Tourism Planning Board. We have Doug Levine, Arts and Culture Representative, term expires December 31st, 2024, and Rick Manning, at-large member, term expires December 31st, 2024. Is there a mover? Mike moves. Is there a second? Seconded by Ann. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of these appointments, please raise your hand. All right, that passes unanimously. Travis, do you want to vote on the advisory board appointments? Do you vote in favor or against? Okay, that passes unanimously then. Thank you. We're now also joined by our other two members of the committee, Veronica Pillar and Travis Brooks. So we do have a full committee today. Next one is Lisa Holmes with County Administrator's Report.
I have a crisp one for you this afternoon, Greg, because we had a meeting last night. So the one update that would be of interest to this committee is on our search process for homeless services coordinator for the county. We are toward the end of that search process and hope in the not too distant future to be able to make an announcement of the candidate.
Great, thank you. Anything else, Lisa?
That's it for me. Thanks.
All right, great. I do not have a formal chair's report today, so we'll jump to our next presentation. We have allotted about 30 to 40 minutes for both of this with presentation and discussion. And so we have, first, we have from the Ithaca Board of Realtors, Brent Katzman, who's the chair of their Government Affairs Committee, and Sarah Wisdorf, who's the executive officer for the Ithaca Board of Realtors, to give a market update, and that's ID 11588. And then also we'll sort of roll into Paul Rossi. Paul, help me again with your title. Association of Realtors. Great. Who's going to talk about some legislative priorities and a little bit about the state perspective. So I will turn it over to Brent. If I could just ask folks, make sure you use your mic about 6 inches from your mouth so everybody can hear you. That'd be great. Hears you. Can hear you. Sorry. It's like Monday on Wednesday. And while you're getting your presentation, if you need any help pulling your presentation up. Great. Taylor, Sarah just needs to share her screen. Oh, did you promote? I did it on my second channel. Yeah. There you go. Thank you.
I apologize for the delay here.
There we go.
Right, we are up and everybody's able to see the screen now, I take it, right?
Yes, thank you.
All right, yeah, thank you, and now I can see it. It's even better.
Go there or there.
Thank you again for inviting us in to speak about housing in our marketplace. And I know that a few of you, at least, were at our legislative luncheon a couple of weeks ago. So you may have seen some of this data. I will say that in preparation for today, though, we did update the last 2 months worth of data in addition to what you saw last week or a couple of weeks ago. So some of this will be new. Our purpose really is to sort of give a state of the housing market from our perspective in working with buyers and sellers, particularly in the residential area. This will really focus on the residential marketplace here in Tompkins County and Ithaca. Our hope here is to arrive at the end with a series of sort of beliefs or objectives that we would like to continue to have conversations about and engage in to try to begin to address what we all, I think, have already recognized as a need for additional mid-market housing. So without further ado, thank you, Sarah. So here's the good news, right? The good news is that there really still continues to be a strong, ready, willing, and able buyer community despite the recent increases in interest rates. Clearly, it has priced some people out, but there still seems to be some residual interest as well as some cash buyers who are interested to come here and join our community and be a part of our workforce. The bad news is that there really isn't anything to buy. You know, a lot of the deeper pocket buyers are having some success, but those who are in the middle market are not. To give you a sense of what we believe is part of the metrics to this issue is that in the last 3 years, the number of properties available to purchase has declined steadily every month virtually. We were already, prior to the pandemic, in a situation where we had gone from selling about 1,200 properties in the marketplace annually to about 900, and now we are down well below that. As you can tell, the red bars in the first 2 months are 2023 data, so we continue this trend of just a real lack of inventory to sell. There's a lot of speculation about why that is. I think part of it certainly is a seller who sells has to also be a buyer. And when it's a difficult market to transition locally, that locks up housing. The current supply is now about 1 month. Historically, the industry views a balanced market as 5 to 6 months worth of inventory so that buyers and sellers have equal strength in the marketplace and equal voice. You can see it declined beginning at the peak of the start of the pandemic and has not recovered. There has been some movement over the last 6 months. Properties are sitting on the market a little bit longer. You can see where we were when we started in the beginning of 2020 with nearly 2 to 3 months worth of time on market before a house was under contract. At the peak of this, which was really late last year and the beginning, late 21 and the beginning of 22, we were down to an average days on the market of 2 to 3 weeks, with many going under contract within a few days. We've begun to see some return or delay of houses going under contract, but not dramatic. This is a really interesting phenomena. We began tracking cash versus non-cash sales a couple of years ago to really get a sense of what was moving the marketplace. And we were, as of last year in Tompkins County, seeing fully 1/3 of all residential transactions were all cash transactions. 62% involved conventional financing, often with as much as 20 and 30% down, large down payments, but still conventional. And as you can see, very little government-backed mortgage activity in our marketplace for a couple of reasons. You know, one, I think, are some of the PMI restrictions that come with some of those mortgages, also some of the loan caps, but predominantly it's our housing stock. We have old housing stock that is difficult often to qualify for some of those mortgages without the seller having to make additional investment. And buyers are able to get low interest rate loans from local lenders and not have to go through the FHA or VA program. The competition that led to sort of escalating prices, if you will, seemed to peak last summer. It has softened, as you can see, but you know, the list to sell ratio, which is what the final sale price was versus what it was listed for, in July of last year was at about 106% across the market, which means for many it was much higher and for others it was closer to list price. So just in the 2 years that we're really looking at, 2 years and a couple of months, the average residential sale price in our total trading area has gone up about 23%. Much of that increase happened the first year, and then we sustained it into the second year as well. And you can see on the white part of the chart the change versus 2020 by month, where some months seeing pretty extraordinary changes. The average sale price now in Tompkins County, as of the end of last year, $354,000. Quite a remarkable number, considering where it started a few years ago.
And could I ask just a quick question? Is total MOS, is that so if something's out of the county but is listed on the MLS. That's why those numbers are different from the Tompkins County
That's
numbers?
correct. Our MLS, our multiple listing service, and our board actually services parts of, I believe, 9 counties. And so while the bulk of our business is in Tompkins County, that number includes Tompkins County plus bits of Cayuga and Seneca and, Cortland and all the rest. Yep. And even that number, right, has gone up $60,000 in 2 years. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that while we were still stretched a couple of years ago in the ability for middle market buyers to participate in the marketplace, we are now down to the point where their income matches or is below what's necessary to pay a median sale price on a house. So this is sort of really where the rub is, right, is the whole question of affordability and how can we continue to attract workforce, citizens who want to participate in property ownership if they're in a position where their wages can't keep up with the average cost of a home. That has recovered somewhat the first 2 months of this year. I'd say we're up at, I think our index now is about 120, but it's still historically low. So beyond supply, right, beyond the prices that we've been seeing, what else are barriers to increasing the availability of owner-occupied affordable housing? Clearly, interest rates, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Property taxes, we can't deny are an impact on the buyer's ability to purchase in our area. But it's the creation of new housing that has been so lagging for so long that we've all been working diligently to try to find ways to work around, and that's part of the conversations we want to keep having. The lack of infrastructure available to connect into municipal services or putting that burden on developers to bring that together. Today, the cost to build, I mean, I've been looking at proposals from large-scale developers as well as little small one-home developers, and they're around $400 a square foot to build a structure on land they already own. So a 1,000-square-foot house is now a $500,000 house. Zoning, there are some areas where zoning will dictate what kind of housing can get built, and then the new FEMA maps, which have not yet been adopted but are clearly on that path, we estimate we'll add about 500 more housing units into the Zone A flood zone, which will therefore add about, we're estimating $300 to $400 a month in housing expense for those people who have to carry flood insurance. So we all know that rental costs have gone up, and obviously they've gone up sort of despite the fact that we're building a lot of rental housing. What does that mean? Well, I think it means a couple of things. It means we still continue to be a very attractive place, right? And we're having some success in having people want to live here and come in. But I also know that we've got frustrated home buyers who have decided to become renters and have spent, a year or two looking for homes, living in temporary locations or whatever, and saying, look, I'm going to ride this out now for a while. I'm going to rent. And so that adds additional competition for the available rental housing stock. We've talked a little bit about this, and I'm obviously also reflecting on an article from a couple of weeks ago that was also repeated today in the Ithaca Times about the governor's proposal to shift EFMAP funds back to the state coffers and put that extra Medicaid burden on the counties. We're already in a situation where property taxes represent 30 to 40% of the monthly housing costs for most property owners. An additional 3% increase obviously isn't going to be of any help. And when I say, the market sort of peaked last spring and summer, at the time, the average mortgage rate was about 3.25%. It escalated very quickly to about 6.75% by the end of the year. The average rate for the year was 5.4%. That effective doubling of the interest rate has had an additional, obviously, deleterious effect on affordability. If you look at the next page, if you combine the rising prices of housing, right? In 2021, they were about $298,000 on average in our market. In 2022, $327,000. You combine that with the prevailing mortgage rate, P&I, your principal and interest, went up $746 without having to do anything other than wait a few months to buy the same house. Obviously, that has also an impact on taxes because they're based on assessed value. And so your total payment went up about $800 in a year for the average priced home in our marketplace. As I mentioned earlier, household growth, and we have had it. I mean, if you look at the governor's housing compact asking for municipalities upstate to produce 1% more housing every year, well, we do that. That isn't really a challenge to us. The challenge, we see it on the realtor side, is doing that by the creation of owner-occupied housing as opposed to multifamily rental housing. I mentioned the FEMA flood map. Most of that impact obviously is going to be on the flats of the city of Ithaca, although I know that there will be impacts along the lakefront. There will be impacts also, I know, in Cortland County and other areas around us. But we're still waiting to see what happens, but the rates are out for the insurance, for the new insurance programs, and they are pretty extraordinary. So, in the end, we've talked about a lot of barriers. Some of these, are what the market is dictating. Land values, where you have municipal services in our trading area, increased by 84.5% in 2 years. Now, I'll also caution that it's a fairly low set of properties, so the kind of property that comes on can certainly influence that. But clearly, if you connect to municipal services, there's a higher value in the land. Construction costs we've talked about. Both the city and town of Ithaca have adopted the new green building standard, which I think we applaud for its intent and its hopeful outcome, but does make it a challenge, a continuing challenge to build affordably. Limited, and these are the ones, though, that I think really are the opportunities that we want to spend some time understanding and hopefully being a part of identifying ways forward. Limited housing infrastructure capacity, which does become an additional developer pre-construction cost, which makes the cost of developing essentially prohibitive for most owner-occupied single-family home development. Zoning regulations we've talked a bit about, and condo regulations. And this came up during the legislative luncheon a couple of weeks ago as being an area that I know even the county planning department, Commissioner Borgella came up to me and said, let's talk more about this because, is the issue the state's regulations or is it administrative? And how can we begin to play a role in facilitating those applications and making it possible? Because, I can stand here and tell you that as the Board of Realtors, we clearly see the demand for condominium housing in our marketplace, for seniors, for young professionals, people who want to begin again to enter into the path of financial stability and wealth creation by owning something. It becomes a lower threshold. It's also a great way for people to stay in the community and downsize and free up larger housing stock that may only have one or two people living in it. So we are interested very sincerely in pursuing conversations to see what we can do to encourage more of that kind of development here. And then finally, the cost of capital. The developer has to pay the same kind of rates or higher, right, that a homeowner does when they're taking out a mortgage loan. These are all barriers right now as we see them. But so what do we believe, right? Well, our premise is that if we can increase the availability of owner-occupied middle market housing, it would offer several benefits to the community, right? Reduce pressure on local rental rates. If we can produce more owner-occupied housing, owners can move out of rental and free up units. We believe there will be price growth stabilization if there's more inventory available and more inventory to sell. Clearly, it'll expand the tax base and therefore reduce pressure on all individual property taxes because we'll have a larger base to work from. Greater cultural and socioeconomic diversity, and obviously the ability to help contribute to household financial and housing stability, which we all know is a concern here. Secondarily, I think it also will increase investment in neighborhoods and communities because people will own their home and have a vested interest in the quality of life in their neighborhood. It'll expand options for seniors. It should improve civic engagement because people will have an investment in the community. It should strengthen economic activity by giving employers an opportunity to hire people who can now find a place to live. And I would expect it would also increase demand for public transit, which we know is an area that continues to be challenged, and we'd love to see it succeed and grow. So that's where we are today. I'd open it up to questions or comments.
Great, yeah. Any questions, comments? Mike?
Well, I guess my big question is, I mean, we're looking at $400 per square foot. So, you know, the government is limited to what it could do. It sounds like the number one thing we could do, I mean, we're not going to change zoning, but the number one thing we could do is provide more water, provide sewer, and provide, what would the other one be? No, sewer and water would be the primary ones, really. And that way we're eliminating septics, we're eliminating well drilling. I mean, is there any other cost that we can ameliorate besides lowering tax? I mean, obviously, there's those. I mean, I would like to do those, but that's not the construction cost. Is there any other construction costs that a government could actually?
No, it's a great question, Mike, and we ask ourselves those questions too. You know, I do think that, you know, if a developer comes forward and has a proposal to build housing that addresses this need, right? I'm not talking about affordable housing programs for which we have the Community Housing Development Fund and other resources, but middle market, owner-occupied housing, workforce housing. They have not only the cost of infrastructure, which you've identified, including roads, right, that meet town standards to build anything of scale, but they also have a fairly enormous carrying cost in the meantime, right, between paying property taxes on that parcel and obviously carrying the cost of capital until they can sell a parcel. So I would like to see some creative thinking about, are there ways, knowing that those will enter into the tax rolls when owner-occupied buyers buy them, to find a way to ameliorate in some way, whether it's through deferral or through some negotiated, not unlike a pilot, I suppose, right, where a developer knows that they're not going to have that expense while they're trying to create this housing, and then let that expense get picked up by the ultimate beneficiary of that housing, which is the buyer, right? So I think there's some things that, in terms of the carrying costs and holding costs for a developer, I think application costs, I think the zoning process can be onerous when developers have to come in with engineering plans, and then the municipality's engineering department reviews them with their engineer, and the developer pays for that engineer to review the work their engineer they've already paid for has to pay for it, right? There is this sort of growth or increase of expense in the application process too that I think can be addressed.
Like 5 things, and you think those 5 things would sink some teeth into this $400 per square?
I think it would. I mean, absolutely. I also think we're suffering from the same thing that everybody else is in terms of the supply chain and all that. I do think that we have seen lumber prices coming down, and that I also believe that doing developments like condos and like townhomes, which are not allowed very many places right now, reduces your cost per square foot construction, because you've got shared walls, you've got shared infrastructure, you can do more houses under one roof and one foundation. So that kind of work also creates some efficiencies.
Cool.
I hope that helped.
Ann? Excuse me, Ann?
Thanks for bringing that up, Brent, as far as the parts about, say, the condos and townhouses. But I will say first, it's good to, you know, helpful to go through all those things that, you know, could make it more affordable to build. But, so a couple of years ago, say maybe 5-6 years ago, this, or maybe it wasn't that long ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, this committee looked at condos and townhouses and what were the things that would be helpful, what were the barriers. And so maybe that's something that we could take up again, you know, and we had different representatives from different organizations trying to figure out, you know, how to do that, because I know also for, you know, you're talking about building costs, but also municipal services. Well, not just municipal, well, infrastructure and municipal services. I think there's a cost savings in that because everything's just much closer together. So I'd like to maybe suggest that this committee with some help could look at that again to try and, because I know other counties such as Saratoga County, we could maybe consult with them. They've been very successful in doing that. But it's a challenge.
Yeah, it is, and we would welcome that, obviously. And you're right. I think the other advantage of infrastructure development is that you're no longer having to take up 1 acre for every dwelling unit, right?
Right.
Which is not a smart land use strategy by any stretch, right?
Yeah, and I know that being out in the community doing various things, and you probably hear the same things, there's a lot of, either it's younger people, well, people of all ages, but specifically younger people and older people, they're looking to not have a whole house to take care of anymore.
Yeah. Correct.
Ann kind of took mine, so no.
I guess, Elliot, too, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you're welcome to join the conversation if there's something that you'd like to contribute or questions that you may have, two of our guests. Elliot's our housing and community development planner. For those that, I'm assuming everybody knows Elliot, but you're welcome to join the conversation however you'd like. I just figured I'd give you that invitation.
Sit wherever you like.
Yeah. Lisa doesn't bite.
Yeah, I would just, actually, this conversation that's going on right now reflects conversation I was just having with Katie downstairs. And I think the challenge is kind of bringing all these things together, zoning reform, focus on middle density housing, infrastructure and so forth, and bringing all that together in the same time, same place. So, perhaps there's a role for the county in working with municipalities to look at those areas where they're trying to spur development and try to assist them in bringing all those things together to do that.
I see Megan jumped on too. So, sorry, Megan, I didn't look up. I forgot that Megan's the Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Planning and Sustainability. So, Megan, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up specifically on the condo piece. So that was some research a Cornell student did in conjunction with interviewing people in the county and all over the community and lenders, et cetera, about those challenges. I will note that some of the specific challenges in New York State have to do with the state. And thanks to the Realtors Luncheon, we kind of connected with Senator Leah Webb's staff person who was interested in this. So we forwarded her that information. And I think some of you may have seen that information before, but I'm happy to share that with you as well. Just some of the issues about the Department of State and the offering plans and how it kind of leads to some costs for condos where it's, nearly as expensive for, 6 units as it would be for 60 floors of units to go through that process and the legal fees and things like that, that make that a little bit more difficult in New York State.
Great, yeah, thanks. Yeah, Megan, if you could share that information, that'd be great. Appreciate it.
And I would just add, there are building code and fire code and other issues that, complicate side by side versus up down what's really most easily doable under the state building code and things like that. And Katie and I actually just got back from a national planning conference, and I will say, not that it makes any of us feel better, but this is a theme, across the country, unfortunately across a lot of the Western world. So these construction costs and the difficulties with meeting, adequate housing supply is something that there are a lot of minds, everybody trying to work on ways to get those costs down.
Great, thank you. I do want to sort of shift gears to Paul Rossi from the New York State Association of Realtors. And Paul, give you the floor.
Try to be quick. I will try to be quick. Thank you, Greg, and the whole committee for giving us a few minutes to interact with is truly the crown jewel of all legislative committees. Sorry, Ann and Amanda, but I'm a little biased. So I do represent NYSAR, the New York City Association of Realtors, founded in 1905 and currently has over 65,000 realtor members in the state. The vision of NYSAR is to be the trusted resource to unite New York in promoting an equitable real estate environment for all. And I want to touch on one specific thing, in that I want to be a resource. I hate saying that I'm a lobbyist. That's what I am. But it comes with some other things. So if you have any questions, I know last night in your meeting, you discussed different voting methods, proportional voting. And I know that Steuben County, Cayuga County, and Livingston County locally do have that. And honestly, it falls onto extra work for your clerks. Just to let you know, they also have rules where absentees are counted immediately as no votes. So it really does kind of throw off voting a little bit. Shared Government Affairs Director. So I work for the Ithaca Board of Realtors, the Elmira Corning Board of Realtors, the Greater Rochester Board of Realtors. So my district covers 13 counties in the Southern Tier Finger Lakes region of New York. And I will just touch on a few of the legislative priorities because they're growing every day, it seems. The Climate Action Council recommendations, electrification. While in general, NYSAR is supportive of going green, I think the concern is the cost to the average homeowner, home buyer, especially impact on first-time home buyers and low-income or moderate-income buyers. Also concerned the grid capacity. It seems odd that when asked if they can handle the changes to the grid, the folks who supply the electricity for the state say, well, given the resources, we can do this. They're saying that to the same organization they have to go before to raise their rates. So, you know, I can do a lot if given the right resources. I'm sure my wife would say that about our house too. Also our concern is the land use. Agricultural impact is a large priority for a lot of upstate New York. We don't want to lose good farmlands for solar. One of the great things, and I will say it all the time, I love Tompkins County. And so many of the things that you do, the way you do them, but building solar on brownfields or landfills is a fantastic use of land resource, and I wish other counties did the same. One of the other priorities, strengthening the state fair housing regulations. A little background, Newsday did an article on realtors, real estate professionals on Long Island, and it showed that they were not following the code of ethics that realtors are supposed to follow. They were treating folks differently depending on their color, on their perceived financial abilities, and we have to be a better police of our own industry. And I was very proud that after that article came out, we pushed very hard for an increased education. We ended grandfathering of education. So no matter how many years you were a realtor professional, you had to retake courses to continue your education. We also asked the state to increase fines. So we worked very hard with our state legislators to help police the industry. And again, for those of you who were at the luncheon a few weeks ago and saw Mike Kelly, watching him thunder away at policing our industry makes me very proud to work for this organization. And I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that on Wednesday of next week at noon is the fair housing fence dedication at the Ithaca Board of Realtors office on 957 Mitchell Street. I know Dan Klein is going to be there for that dedication. What are the other issues? Telemarketing restrictions. I will just start by saying I've gotten the auto warranty calls. I'm one of those foolish people who picks up no matter what the number is. Part of my job, I will blame that. Again, my wife just shakes her head at me, which is probably normal. But the telemarketing restrictions were born out of the pandemic emergency response needs. At one point, the state had states of emergency on 6 or 7 different topics, including the pandemic, nursing shortage, gun violence. What we were looking for is a technical amendment for certain industries that would not impact the state of emergency or states of emergency. Really hard to explain the technical amendment to allow realtor professionals to make calls saying, have you considered listing your house? But without those calls, houses don't get on the market sometimes. So it was something that we thought would help the lack of housing. A very sticky issue, good cause eviction, huge issue for our state organization. As you can imagine, it is controversial on many levels. The state considers it a way that there's a stifling of investment in properties. This came up especially hard in the Rochester area that I represent. And I was explaining to someone, I understand, no one should be kicked out of their apartment because the landlord wants to put in a marble countertop. Not everyone needs that. People need safe, sanitary, and clean places to live. Safe, sanitary, and clean. They don't need marble countertops. I don't need them. And it's foolish to expect that anyone who lives in an apartment doesn't consider that their home. So it needs to be treated with respect as if it was their home. But the other part of good cause eviction is it does kind of end contract in some respect. It turns into lifelong leases. If I want to sell an apartment complex and I don't evict any of my tenants, then I'm selling probably to an out-of-state investor, and those folks kind of go with the property. I'm concerned personally and professionally that those out-of-state investors don't care as much about the property, the people in it, or the community. And we've seen, and again, in some of the larger Rochester suburban areas, folks are just unloading their apartment complexes to folks in Florida, the Midwest. We had one realtor member who sold 24 apartment buildings that he owned because he just didn't want to deal with it anymore. It's very difficult. And again, part of my job is dealing with the nuance, the perception of things. And I understand both sides of the good cause eviction. I'm just trying to explain some of the other pieces of it. And I will share with the committee, the Rochester Board of Realtors has been putting together a working group on the housing shortage issue. And it's finance people, it's builders, developers, bankers, realtors. It's really everyone who touches the sale of homes. And we have, last I knew, was about a 9-page white paper of ways we think we can help with the shortage. And I will, Greg, make sure that you have that for the committee. Another very simple, basic issue at the state level, reducing state and local real estate taxes. Some of the things we're seeing, historic preservation districts, where on the back of real estate transactions, money is getting set aside for historic preservations in park areas in municipalities. mortgage recording taxes. Very interesting, just last week in Steuben County, there was a debate of just doing away with the mortgage recording tax because the chairperson of the legislature said, we're taxing on something that we do nothing for. And he really had a hard time grasping that. And what it boiled down to is, with the $1.5 million the county expects to lose because of the FMAP theft from the state, as they called it, they can't give up the mortgage tax as well. It's too big of a hit to their budget. And I don't want to forget to say thank you to the Deputy County Administrator, Norma Jane, who brought the FMAP to our attention. And it was something that, honestly, until she gave that to us, we weren't really following it as closely as we should have. Another issue, the flip tax. The large percentage of housing that's coming on the market are flips. A lot of the renovations are from realtors who buy the properties, get them up to code, get them ready to sell, and the state wanted to charge a 50% tax if they sold it within a year of buying it, and a 25% tax if it was within 2 years of buying it. Seems sort of counterproductive when there's a huge need for housing. The last major thing that I will discuss is the first-time homebuyers legislation. Back in yesteryear, when we had Governor Cuomo in Albany, the NYSAR put through a first-time homebuyers piece of legislation. It was unanimously approved in the Senate and Assembly. The governor threatened to veto unless he did a study on that. The study came back, and shockingly enough, the state was afraid that it might lose money. We are currently working on new legislation this year. Imagine a 429 college savings account, but for your first-time home buyers to help them pay the down payment of their first home. Because I'm assuming most of us in this room don't have $20,000 or walking around liquid cash. So again, just thank you very much. I appreciate the relationships that I've made here in Tompkins County. I always want to be a resource to all of you, and I want to thank you all. In the 13 counties, you are by far the most open, transparent, online county there is. Lisa's incredible. The ARPA process, I'm embarrassed at how some other counties have done that. It's not good government. What you've done here is how things should be done. You debate, you bring the problems and concerns to the floor. Everyone can hear that and see it in public. Difficult encampment, safety, policing, the housing issues. Your staff rolls up its sleeves and works the problems. The staff here, including, I don't want to forget, the clerks, absolutely top shelf. Megan, Elliott, the legislators, Lisa, Norma, all of you, so impressed, and you're doing it right. And I'm sorry that your meetings are long and you're tired and you have to eat pizza during the meeting because you're skipping your dinners. But really, it makes a difference. You're doing it the right way. And again, a thank you to Deb Dawson, Shauna Black, Ann Koreman, Amanda Champion, Mike Sigler, and Veronica Pillar for coming to our event a few weeks ago. And I also, before I end, I want to say I'm sorry for your loss. I did meet Dooley when I first started coming here. Dooley and Peter over in that corner, and I usually sat over here. So some great people in this room, and thank you for the time that we've had today.
Well, Paul, I appreciate it. We've got maybe a minute or two for a couple of questions. I will say that we also appreciate you for being one of the faithful to actually watch the meetings. There's a lot of key details at anybody who sits around this table may only know, or those that are watching intently from afar. So appreciate your involvement and commitment and interest in the work that we're doing and the support and partnership that we have, and the work that your organization does to make housing more accessible, to advocate. We really do appreciate that, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that April is Fair Housing Month here at the committee, just as a reminder. So excited to see the things that will carry on throughout the month in celebration of greater accessibility and housing for all. Mike, did you have a question? No? Okay. Ann has a question?
Thanks. Just two things real quick. I will try and make for the fair housing fencing. I have a conflict, but if I can, I will try and make it. I'm really glad, that you guys are doing that. The other thing, just real quick again, that you mentioned, a couple of things you mentioned. First, Paul, was regarding the cost of going green and grid capacity. And I probably had your card at one point, but if I could get that, I could hook you up with some people that are working on that locally and get you some more information for NYSAR from it's our case board. It's been working on that, one of our subcommittees. But thank you for that.
Veronica?
Yeah, I just real quick, thank you so much, Paul, for coming and presenting all that. In the spirit of Fair Housing Month, it's really good to hear about the initiatives toward equity from your organization. How are y'all tracking the effectiveness of those? Or going to?
I would have to look. I'd be making it up, and that's not fair.
Yeah.
I will say in answer to that question, as a practitioner, right, part of the outcome of the moves the state has made is for us to be at first substantive contact, having very direct conversations about the rights that our customers who may become our clients have as it relates to fair housing, and our obligations by our code of ethics and by our licensure to abide by all fair housing laws, state and federal. And as broker members of the board, we are all responsible for supervising all of our professionals and viewing their files and making sure they're complying with those regulations. So I think the measurement is in the number of complaints that surface and how they're dealt with. And I'm not aware of any recently happening at the local level, but that they may be complaining to other areas that we're just not hearing about. But we are very alert to those needs.
I can say to that anecdotally, my husband's a realtor. Many of you know that. But I would say some of the conversation around fair housing that we have at our table, right, now to what we were talking about 7, 8 years ago, as he was getting into the profession, it's much more a part of the topic, right? And I think it's a lot more top of mind for a lot of the realtors. And it's sometimes hard to measure, but it is a greater awareness and more discussion around it. It's happening, and I think it's really front and center. Just what I see at a personal level, I have no way to measure that, but I know that my small little bubble of realtor is definitely having that conversation quite a bit.
I guess I'll only add one last thing because I know we're out of time, but the state actually, legislature has been discussing a requirement that brokerages collect demographic data for the purpose of demonstrating the degree to which we're making a difference, right, in fair housing. And it's a really interesting challenge because we are meant to be blind to demographic data in our handling of our relationships with our customers and clients, and yet, on the other hand, they're asking us to gather this data in order to present it and prepare it. And so I think there's a very lively conversation about, does that actually work against the objectives of fair housing and the aim towards being completely welcoming and blind to all protected classes?
Question from Ann, and then we have to wrap it up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the luncheon and the discussions. And I heard back from some of our staff and other people that, other legislators and people, other real estate brokers and agents, that was really helpful, so I'll definitely, anytime you want to have one of those. I went to one several years ago, but it wasn't quite as interactive, and so we definitely would be willing to help participate in similar or smaller discussion, groups, so thank you very much.
For that end.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. And we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is Heather McDaniel, President of the Ithaca Area Economic Development. We've got a IDA 101 and some recent outcomes. Heather, is about 15 minutes for conversation discussion okay? Okay. I'm going to try to keep you to that, but more importantly, I'm going to try to keep us to that so that we can stay on topic.
Know me, I can talk, so I don't have my phone in front of me.
I'll give you a nod.
Feel free to throw something across the room at me if you need to. Well, thank you for having me back. It's always a pleasure to present here. I'm just going to step back a little bit and give a little bit of an overview of the IDA 101, and some of our outcomes over time. So, economic development is the engine that helps our communities grow successfully. It creates housing, employment, opportunities, improves natural resources, and fosters a thriving business environment. One of the tools that economic development developers use to bolster the economy is a pilot. What is a pilot? Payment in lieu of taxes is a property tax abatement or an incremental tax payment. It's new tax dollars. The abatement acts as a financial incentive to undergo an economic development project, and you see increases in taxes over time, new tax base. So under a pilot, it encourages a developer to put down private investment in real estate and/or equipment and create jobs or other community benefits such as housing, tourism destinations, or even renewable energy assets in return for a temporary reduction in property taxes. Pilots can support a company's decision to invest capital in projects that increase the county's tax base and create jobs or other community benefits. Let's take a look at a pilot in action. An Ithaca company is growing and needs to purchase equipment and add 20 employees. They contemplate investing at home. Investing in that existing facility will increase the assessed property value, and it could make staying in the Ithaca area cost prohibitive. So they must decide, 1, not to expand, 2, to invest at the current location, or 3, to relocate to a more cost-effective alternative, often out of the area or even out of the state. Rather than potentially lose employees or other community benefits by moving out of the state, that company might decide to make an investment at home by applying for a pilot to offset some of those expansion costs. There are many valid questions regarding pilots. We get them all the time from the community. Here's some common ones. Will other taxpayers need to make up for the taxes not paid? No. The pilot is an abatement. It's applied to the property tax assessment, the new assessment after improvements, but it does not create a budget deficit that is paid for by the public. Do developers with pilots have to pay special district taxes such as fire, water, sewer, library, and business improvement district taxes? Yes. Projects receiving pilots still pay special district taxes at full assessment. Are pilots committed to developers that have already committed to undergoing a project? No. Pilots committed to developers that have, no, expansion would not occur but for the assistance offered through the pilot. So a quick recap. Companies are encouraged to invest capital that creates jobs or housing or renewable energy assets, community benefits, and increase the tax base, thereby improving quality of life in Tompkins County. The Tompkins County IDA delivers economic incentives to business and industry to diversify and strengthen Tompkins County's tax base and enhance community vitality. We strive to develop the economy in an organized, sustainable, and environmentally beneficial manner. We ensure that Tompkins County is a great place to live, work, and play. And I will leave you today with our outcomes at the IDA since 1985. $2.3 billion in new private investment, $71 million in new property taxes, over 1,800 new housing units, 24% of which are affordable units, 65 megawatts of renewable solar energy in our county, and over 3,500 new jobs. 9,000 retained jobs, not on my slide. So with that, that's my presentation for today. I'd love to answer questions. You also have IAED staff report in your agenda packet, which I'm happy to answer questions about as well. I would like to first just announce that we've offered a job, our business services position, which has been open since December. We did offer it to a candidate. She accepted today. So announcements will be coming out in the next couple of weeks about the new addition to our team. Really going to be focused on meeting with businesses, doing business retention and expansion. So more to come on that.
Great. Great to hear. Thank you. Any questions on either Heather's presentation, the pilots, or the report that was provided in the agenda packet? Ann?
So Heather, I'm trying to remember this exactly. Maybe you can refresh my memory. I think we had talked, you had mentioned about sometimes like the assessment going up, before the construction's complete. With a pilot, is that taken care of for that, for those projects that have received pilots?
What the pilot does is it phases all those new taxes in as the value of that new improvement is put online. So, the pilot effectively will phase in those taxes rather than having it hit the assessment roll all at once.
So can I kind of help or give maybe like a specific example?
Yeah.
So let's say a property is worth $1 million, right? But partially through construction, there's a change in the assessed value to, we'll call it $1.5 million because of the improvements that have already been made. That pilot would say that $500,000, if it's the first, depending on the pilot, right, whatever percentage increase they would pay on that new $500,000, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
so
then
they would always pay the base, the million, based on the million, and then the new value would be phased in.
And then as that grows to a completed project, let's say it goes to 2 million, and then let's say it's a stabilized project, and it goes up to 3 million or 10 million or whatever, that difference is what's phased in depending on what year of the pilot that's in, but they're always paying 100% of the base. And then every time there's an incremental increase or new tax assessed on that base million is what they're paying the tax on.
That is correct. So our IDA is one of the most conservative IDAs in the state, offering 7 and 10-year abatements. Many IDAs offer 20-year abatements, and our abatements phase in over time. So based on what the value of the improvement is in year 1, they might be paying 10%, in year 2, 20%, in year 3, 30%. So as that improvement value goes up, the payment is based on a percentage, so the payment increases as well.
I'll clarify what I was asking, and as far as like during construction. So if their assessment goes up during construction, or do they still have to pay more taxes?
What we have done for projects, in Tompkins County, we do 100% assessments, so assessments go up all the time.
Right.
For a project that is under construction over multiple tax years, and those are the really big, expensive projects, take more than a year to build, the value, they will be reassessed. If they're 50% done, the value might go up by 50%. If there was nothing on the property, that improvement value is up 50%. They're not done with the building. They're not leased out. They're not generating any revenue. They're just incurring costs. What we do standard in our pilots is we freeze that land value during construction so that they're not responsible for that sort of mid-construction increase in value.
Okay, so that's what I was asking. Yeah, so that is covered. I mean, it's too bad, you probably heard some of the discussions, too bad we can't figure out some other way to do that, especially for residential, because if they're upping the amount of taxes they're having to pay before they're actually realizing any financial gain.
Yeah, the development timeline is often some sort of consideration in when the property is assessed and what percentage you want completed by a certain time because of that change in assessment, because any improvement has the potential to create an assessment increase or an assessment change. So there's a lot of calculation that goes into that.
Well, and one of the big things that the developers really aim for in rental properties is this community, whether it's student housing or non-student housing, the rental market is July and August 1st. So for a very large project coming online, they want to hit that rental season. They want to be open in June or July so that they're not carrying a vacant property. I mean, we've seen projects that the construction period went over. They opened in December. They were primarily vacant. You know, they had a little bit of rental uptake, but they would be vacant until that July, August, rental cycle, because that's just, the cycle all the landlords work on here in Tompkins County.
Veronica?
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure I quite understood the answer to the last part of Anne's question, which is like I get how the pilots are phased in for like added value due to the construction, but so just to be clear, if there's added value to the base amount of what was on the property just because of like increased market prices, the same way that someone's private home, they could like do absolutely nothing to it and the assessment still goes up. If that's the case for one of these projects, you're saying that they do not have to pay like the base taxes, the increased, what would be the increased amount of base taxes until the project's done?
So there's a land tax and an improvement tax. On a property where you have no improvement, there's only a land tax. What the pilot does is they say, we are going to abate the improvement, any taxes associated with the improvement.
Sorry to interrupt, but I guess what if the value of the land itself increases?
Then they would have to
They would pay the increase in the land.
Okay.
For the most part, some pilots are a little bit different. I mean, all of our pilots are public information. They're up on our website. We have 59 active pilots right now. So we try and make them all the same, but some of them there might be a little bit different. But for the most part, yes.
Okay, I think I understand, thank you. My other question was just about the housing units in here. Can you remind me your definition of affordable? And of the units of housing created, are they all rental, or is it a mix of rent and own, or how does it break down?
Yeah, great question. So the IDA is a great tool when you can abate property taxes at scale. So you can do it for a large rental project. It's not a great tool for a small rental project because you don't have anything to abate, or not very much to abate anyway, and the fees are fairly high and the legal fees are high. The IDA is given its authority to abate property taxes by New York State. They cannot abate for owner-occupied housing. So it's all rental housing. You know, the IDA, this community has used the IDA to provide more rental housing. As we heard from our friends earlier, you know, that's part of the piece of the puzzle, so that you're seeing more rental uptake, and it does impact the for sale units in a positive way. So it's all rental, and affordable is you are under a regulatory agreement by a state or federal agency to income qualify and income certify every single resident. Their rents are based on a percentage of their income. Your big A affordable housing. Generally 80% of median income and below. Some of the projects, the 4% tax credit projects, there are some that we've got, I think, up to 100% of median income.
Last question, yeah.
Another complicated maybe question. We were mentioned before about townhomes or condos for sale. So you're talking about owner-occupied. We couldn't do pilots or tax abatements when the owner was owning it, I guess, the final owner. So if we were to do townhouses or condos, are they eligible at all for any tax abatement or pilot, or even if it was to not incur that extra bump of assessment improvement taxes while they were building?
Only if they're rental, only if it's on a rental model. And there's a developer that's doing a couple of rental projects here in Tompkins County. They were approached by my counterpart in Steuben County in Bath, where the new Amazon warehouse is being built. And the IDA worked with them to develop a model where they're building small single-family homes on an entire block. They'll be rented during the term of the property tax incentive, and then after the 10 years, the developer will be able to sell individual units. So it was a way to get some 1,400 to 1,800 square foot starter homes on small lots built, but as a rental model so that people can come in and rent, and the underlying property taxes are being phased in over that period of time. It reduced their cost and their time to market. I think those were some of the terms that you heard in the previous presentations.
Thank you.
Heather, as always, I know we could talk for the whole meeting, but thank you for your time. I appreciate the update, and we're going to move on to the next agenda item. Thank you, as always.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'd like Peggy and Jennifer and Nick, you're all welcome to come to the table. Jennifer, you can hang out there if you want to. You don't have to come. Sure. So we have Peggy Coleman with us, who is is it president of the CVB? Director.
I'm the director of this. Whoops. I'm the director of the CVB and the vice president of the chamber. We are one organization. The Convention and Visitors Bureau is a division.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for helping me there. So we have your annual report. This is the CVB annual report 2022, ID 11483. I've got about 20 minutes or so slotted for your presentation. And I don't know if you have other folks from your organization joining.
I do not today.
Okay.
You're stuck with just me.
All right, that's okay.
They are with me in spirit. I have some additional copies. Jennifer is passing around. Thank you. This is, as I mentioned, we are a division of the Chamber of Commerce, and so this is the total organization's annual report. So first of all, thank you. Thanks for making time for us. I know at the Strategic Tourism Planning Board, our presentation was recorded, so if you want to hear someone's voice other than mine, that is on the county's website. We really appreciate the investment in our organization and the trust you have in us as your contracted destination marketing organization. In 2022, a lot happened, so we're going to just jump right in. For those following along, our report starts on page 46 in the packet. I don't know if I have the opportunity to stream. If not, I do. Oh, lovely. I do.
What you need to do, Peggy, is just log into the Zoom link, and then you'll get promoted to a presenter, and you can share your screen that way.
So I can just keep chatting while we're waiting for that.
Hi, Peggy. I apologize. I do need an email for you.
It's just peggy@visitithaca.com, and no apologies necessary, Taylor. That's on me. So I will just keep chatting. So, we do a number of things, and one of the biggest things that we do is represent all of Tompkins County, and we do that through advocacy, we do that through direct sales, we do that through marketing, and so also supporting the tourism-based businesses. While the Chamber of Commerce is a membership organization, through our relationship with the county and our contract, we represent every single tourism-based business in Tompkins County, regardless of whether they're chamber members or not. So I do think that's an important aspect to remind everyone of. Some of the advocacy work that we've done, it is a year-round opportunity for us, for sure. Generally, February and March, and this year in April, I spend a lot of time in Albany advocating on behalf of the industry. Some of the things that we focus on are making sure that the New York State matching funds is funded at a reasonable level. Our state government investment in tourism is dramatically lower than not just our neighboring states, but most states in the nation. And the matching funds program, that is how we're able to pay for things like the design and printing of our travel guide. Or on a regional level, we invest with the other 13 counties in the Finger Lakes region to do a collaborative PR campaign. So it really is important to us. It is not a big portion of our budget, but it really is a critical component. So that's some of the work that we talked about in Albany. We also have been working on the federal level, trying to get the number of J-1 visas increased. J-1 visa workers are really important to all tourism destinations because these are folks who want to work in all industries, but tourism industry is a well-respected industry across the world, except for in our country. And so these are folks who want to come, they want to work, and to fill those vacant jobs that we have. If we jump forward and move along, one of the other areas that we help our local businesses is in our Farm to Fork Agri-Culinary Grant. And those are direct micro grants that we are able to offer to producers and growers. And in 2022, we expanded that opportunity to folks who also locally sourced, if they were restaurants or beverage producers. As you all know, our industry was hit first and hit hardest when the pandemic struck, and we still have a number of folks who are recuperating. And so we were very much delighted to be able to push out of a $20,000 budget. We had 20,000, correct. We had roughly 9,000 of that those projects, the dollars were pushed out, the projects were completed, and we rolled the remaining $12,000 into our 2023 budget to make sure we were still able to support those for folks. Obviously, as a Convention and Visitors Bureau, marketing is a really important component to what we do. One of our biggest tools is our website. In 2022, we did a complete revamp of the website, and we knew we would see a dip in traffic. That's just, you lose your authority when you go and present your new data. The search engines don't remember where you were. And so we were anticipating that we would see a bit of a dip in our website traffic, but I'm pleased to report that it was not as far as we anticipated, and we still were able to serve our visitors and our tourism businesses well. The bounce rate did not decrease, or excuse me, did decrease. Bounce rate is when someone comes to your site and they don't find what they're looking for. So you always want your bounce rate to decrease, and even with the redesign, that number still did decrease. So that tells us the redesign is helping visitors find the information that they need and find it quickly and serve them well. We also are seeing that our engagement has continued to rise over time. And so we anticipate, originally we thought it would be a 6-month decline. Already we're anticipating we're going to get back to where we were and keep growing from there. As far as our feeder markets, despite the pandemic, have not really changed. We're still seeing folks coming predominantly from the New York City area, from Buffalo, Syracuse, Philly, Rochester, and it's really interesting when we look at where we're investing our marketing dollars to where the visitors are coming from when they come to our visitor centers. It literally, you can overlap the feeder market demographic, so that's been really exciting for us to see. We've continued to feed really relevant content when it comes to social media. We focus very strongly on year-round marketing. Everybody knows it's really busy here in the summertime, but the wintertime is not really as active as we'd like it to see. And so it's been nice to see that some of our top posts where we've gotten the most engagement include winter. The Taganic Falls image really presented well, and we had a great number of engagement. We introduced Reels. The video of Taganic Falls thawing in the spring of 2022 was the most popular video with over 31,000 views and 2,700 engagements. The other thing that we're very proud of is that in the Finger Lakes region, the Visit Ithaca Instagram channel has the largest following out of all of the tourism counts in the Finger Lakes region, with the exception of Rochester having more followers. So we're really excited to be able to report that back to you. Besides our website and our social channels, we do place specific paid advertising, and we try to really focus on those need periods. So wintertime, looking to folks who can come that Sunday through Thursday visitation. And so we invested with Brand USA for a winter campaign that did very well for us. We focused with the slogan of a wonderland of waterfalls. And that particular program, the Brand USA, we saw engagement with over 3 million impressions, and that also included Expedia display ads as well as Google display ads. We partnered with public radio. Our core audience, they're highly educated, very much their core values match the core values of our destination. And so we had a really nice engagement with NPR station in Buffalo area. We contracted with Heritage Radio Network. We really appreciate that relationship. It's something we've done for a few years where people come, they're based in New York City. They come, they've actually been immersed in our area, done live broadcasts from here, and we're still seeing repeat action from those podcasts and live shows that have been done here. As far as PR is concerned, you know, everyone complains budget is never big enough, and that's always the case, right? But PR is where we have the opportunity to expand our reach by having somebody else share our message. And in 2022, we hosted 11 individual press trips. And, you know, while we may have had media requests less than 2021, our actual mentions were up in 2022. So we responded to 48 media inquiries. We were featured in 9 I Love New York blogs. And we had some high-level media coverage, travel and leisure. We had a really great coverage in May of last year in the New York Times. Afar. There's a few different earned media ideas and coverage pushed in the report itself. And we've also been moving to influencers. It's interesting the way we have to talk to all audiences in all of their channels. And so I am the dinosaur of our team. I tell that to them frequently and report to you as well. And so it's been interesting to see over time the changes, and the relationships we've been able to build with some of these influencers has, again, paid off over time. We are seeing folks who have come for a visit, and then they're producing multiple pieces on our behalf, and we're really seeing great coverage there, and hitting those niche audiences that we're trying to focus on based on what our visitor demographics are. I know we had a report about the Waterfalls Challenge, so I'm not really going to talk about that. If anyone has questions, I'm absolutely happy to talk about that as well. And I know I'm flying through this, so.
That's okay, we need to.
I know. It's like, hey, cram a year into 20 minutes or less. So then we've talked about advocacy, we've talked about marketing, and so now I'd like to talk a little bit about our visitor experience team. So marketing, if you think about it, marketing invites literally everyone from around the world to come to the area. And then the visitor experience team are the folks who take care of them once they're here and while they're planning their visit. So our visitor touch points were up nearly 70,000 over last year. Our offsite activations, that's when we bring the visitor information, if you will, to those folks. We were back on campuses and saw a 275% increase in traffic at those. Our visitor centers, we continued to engage with folks from all over the world. It was really exciting to welcome back international visitors, 79 different countries. And we also did a number of Ithaca 101s, where we do those virtually and in person to contact people before they're attending something at one of our campuses. So it preps the folks, it preps the families and the potential students on what they can experience while they're here. They've been really well received, and we're definitely seeing great engagement, and the students especially feeling like they're more connected to our community. The other program I'll touch on briefly is our Visitor Journey A to D. It's our ambassador program. We held 9 in-person training classes and trained 42 folks. People who participated included the Tompkins County Workforce Development Board, our friends from IAED, and the Hospitality Employment Training Program. This program, unfortunately, is no longer going to be supported as of the end of this month. So for 2023, we're already looking at how we can replace that programming to make sure we can still keep our folks trained to take good care of our visitors and make their stays positive. The other thing that our visitor experience team has been working on is an accessibility program. It's one of our community goals, and it's one of my personal goals, that everyone feels welcomed and comfortable here in Tompkins County, and that it is an accessible place to visit. And through partnering with I Love New York, we've been doing a number of surveys to make sure we can express that information to visitors who have other abilities, and that information gets fed not only to ilovenewyork.com, but we're implementing it here locally. I'll quickly go to our sales team. Sales, these are the folks who are working on the meetings, conferences, travel trade, sports markets, et cetera. I mentioned our collaboration with Brand USA. We've also worked with them for some fam tours, which is bringing people here from New Zealand, since there now is a direct nonstop flight from New Zealand and JFK, and we have a direct nonstop flight from JFK into Ithaca. It's a great opportunity for us to expand our international visitors. We, of course, have been working on the conference center project. The conference center is, as you know, ready to open in 2024, and so we have been building all of the systems. Our team, until the conference center actually has its own staff, our team has been doing that work. So the conference center, the booking system, the diagramming system, and aggressive sales missions at a number of trade shows in person, as well as starting hard hat tours. So that's kind of the Reader's Digest version of a year of the work of the CVB. I do want to acknowledge our team, because you see me frequently, but we have a lot of really hardworking people who love and are dedicated to this community. So I'd like to say thank you to the entire Tompkins Chamber and CVB team. And I'm happy to answer questions on anything I shared with you today or anything that's in the report.
Great. Thanks, Peggy. I'll just take a quick moment, personal privilege here. I started my career in the hospitality business. I have a tremendous amount of respect for hospitality and tourism workers because of the skills that it provides you as either your first job or your lifelong career. So I think they're really important. They're really an important part of our community, and appreciate all that you and your team do to support that industry. When I was in industry, never really understood the value of the CVB or what they did, right? People just sort of showed up, we served them, and then we went to bed and started all over again the next day. The more time I spent with the Strategic Tourism Planning Board and the CVB and the Chamber, really come to appreciate and understand the critical necessity that your team plays, especially how you were able to continue through during the pandemic, to promote and to be nimble and to shift, and all of the things that you did to make sure that our tourism economy didn't see the huge dip, but continue to grow and grow out of that time. So really do appreciate that. And so please pass that along to the rest of your team, because I definitely think if you look at the financial impact of this sector on our community, you can see the value of the good work that a lot of hardworking people are doing, including you and your team. So thank you. If there are any burning questions, I will entertain those now. If not, I know Peggy's super accessible and would love to follow up with your question offline. Is burning? Okay.
Quick thanks for attending the Trumansburg Chamber of Commerce Awards dinner. And so appreciate you, your organization sponsoring last year the Downtown Ithaca Pride Week. And just a quick question, are your organization or your staff members of the Diversity Consortium?
Our organization is, I have to lie, I can't lie, I can't tell you who on our team is participating in that, Ann, I don't know.
Okay.
Jennifer had her hand up.
There you are.
Carly Hansen, who is our HR and operations director, resident engaged with DCTC, but we also have some other team members who do
Okay, because, just from my perspective, could always see improvement in diversity in all your materials. Thank you.
No, you're 100%.
DCTC was one of the organizations we provided a grant to when we did our Great Big Chamber Thank You 2 falls ago so that they could fund their programming for 2022. So we agree with you.
Okay, and not just picking on you guys, I say this to everybody, and the county, we are also ourselves working on trying to improve our diversity and inclusion too.
It is not taken as being picked on. We
Okay.
agree 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Peggy.
Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you. All right, well, next on the agenda item, we've got Nick here from the Planning Department. We've got Resolution Spring 2023 Community Celebration Grant Awards, ID 11548. If someone could move that. Ann moves. Is there a second? Seconded by Mike Sigler. I'll turn it over to you, Nick, for a quick.
Yeah, thanks. Community celebrations grants. We have been running this program since basically the beginning of the tourism program, roughly 20 years ago. We got 18 applications in this cycle, requesting a total of just under $32,000. Proposed awards of just over $23,000 for 15 projects that are events, I should say, that are all listed in your packet there. I don't have the packet pages because I printed it off from a different source.
62.
So there you go, page 62. I think we were, the committee was generally satisfied with the responses that came in. There's, you can see we got a variety of events, in places all around the county for folks with all sorts of interests. So happy to answer any questions folks have.
Any questions on this resolution? Mike?
Question for the chair. I'd like to abstain from this just because I sell advertising, and I don't know if any of these guys will be seeking advertising. So.
Marketing and advertising is an eligible expense. I'm sure, I'm confident that several of them have that as a line item in their budgets.
Great. So Mike Sigler's abstaining from this vote. Any other questions or comments on this resolution? All right, great. All those in favor? That's 4. All those opposed, 0. All those abstaining. Got Mike Sigler. Thanks. All right, so the next one we have is Resolution Spring 2023 Tourism Advancement Grant Awards, ID 11549, and that is on packet page 65. Nick? Oh, sorry, I need somebody to move that. Ann moves, Travis seconds. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Similar, this is sort of a reformatting of 2 separate programs we had been running for recent years that were known as the Tourism Project Grants and Tourism Marketing Grants. We've combined them under the same header to reduce the number of contracts and checks moving around, but also we'll still be tracking, how those expenses are being used and what's happening. But the general purpose is the same as those 2 grants were, which is to drive traffic to Tompkins County to generate interest in folks for overnight trips to the county. Some of these are events that you'll recognize and see that have happened here before, and others will be the first time they've ever happened. So there's a bit of a mix here of things that are new and things that are well tested. So we're, I think, generally excited to see a lot of interest in this grant. So you can see on that cover memo we had 15 applications, 12 of which were recommended for funding, total funding allocation of $79,600. So happy to answer any questions that you have about the Tourism Advancement Grant slate.
And it looks like there's a request for $195,000.
Yeah, we had a lot of money requested, so the committee definitely had their work cut out for them, sorting through those, determining which ones we're going to move forward and which ones had to be cut or turned down.
Great, and I guess Mike, same issue?
Same issue, yeah.
Okay. So Mike is going to abstain from this one as well. Any questions or comments on this resolution for Nick? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? 4, and 1 abstain. All right, moving right along. Nick, you get the award for most concise here, so I appreciate that. The resolution budget adjustment to tourism program 2023, ID number 11571. If I could have a mover, please. Moved by Travis, seconded by Veronica.
Great, thank you. So this is definitely the most complicated resolution of the three today. We had a pretty substantial budget surplus in our hotel room occupancy last year. There are a variety of factors that contributed to that, partly due to the timing of when that budget was drafted and partly due to the timing of how people began to return to traveling, which, we didn't exactly foresee. That led to us having just over $4.2 million in revenue through room tax last year. We only had $2.4 million budgeted. So this resolution is intended to allocate that surplus into programs that we can use this year. You'll see in the memo there is a description of each of those programs. The largest single one is the top one on the second page of the memo, expanded ACOD grant to help stabilize vulnerable organizations. We've been hearing throughout the community over the last several weeks and months from many sources about how some of our most venerable institutions that provide arts and cultural destinations are struggling financially and struggling to keep their organizations stable. This funding source is intended to provide both operating support and mentoring and oversight for those organizations to help them stabilize their operations and get back on track, get audiences back in their venues. We'll also be working with Community Arts Partnership on this program to roll it out, so some administration is included for them as well. The other bits of this that are, I think, most relevant is the relaunch of our Strategic Tourism Implementation Grants. This is a grant program that was suspended at the onset of the COVID pandemic. We're excited to bring this back. This is, funding that's directly in line with some of the goals that we have in the Strategic Tourism Plan and intended to advance the initiatives that are laid out in there. So that's something that is a key component of how we're intending to move those goals forward. And then other pieces you'll see here are increased funding for other grant programs, some increased funding to operating programs through the Convention Visitors Bureau, Downtown Ambassadors, and some funding to help us conduct a update to the visitor profile study. This was prepared by the Strategic Tourism Planning Board Budget Committee, presented to the full board last month, and discussed, I think at length at that point. And I'm happy to answer any questions about this and hopefully, see if we can move this forward.
Any questions for Nick? Ann.
So I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just so it's on the record. The 600 and something thousand that the county gave 2 years ago or so to STPB?
2022 budget.
In the 2022 budget, there was $655,000 of ARPA rescue.
Oh, it was 2022?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
The last year's budget.
And that was used?
That was 100% spent.
That was spent?
Yep.
And we're looking at surplus for this year and then looking at how to spend. Thank you.
Yeah, this is unspent money from last year to bring into this year's budget.
Okay.
And also, in full disclosure, I'm on the STPB Budget Committee, and I think one of the challenges in the 2021 and 2022 budget was, like everybody else had, what's going to happen? What's going on, right? So you can have a conservative budget and have a surplus. You can have an aggressive budget and have no surplus, but you can then also have a shortfall. So I think because of COVID and some of the decisions was to err on the conservative side, obviously, it was kind of like throwing darts or spaghetti at the wall a little bit, right, during that period with budgeting. Not that we didn't have a lot of data and as much as we could and expertise going into it, but it still was a challenging time to budget, and we ended up with a surplus. And I personally feel strongly that reinvesting those dollars back into what the tourism program supports and the arts community and struggling arts community, but also strategic development type opportunities is really important. So just sort of wanted to get that out there a little bit, that there wasn't really an exact science during the 2021 and 2022 budget process.
But now we have the COVID financial, formula, so we're all set if it happens next time. We know what to do.
Yeah, we're working on that. Any other questions for Nick? Veronica?
I guess not a question, but just a comment because it seems relevant on the record. One of the responses to our initial Community Recovery Fund awards was some complaints from the arts sector that in the original round of funding, none were awarded to arts things. So I think I just wanted to name that in this context because I think this is, money coming from a different place, but going toward a lot of the same stuff, and I think that's great.
There was a lot of conversation around that at the SCPB and the Budget Committee, and also trying to look at maximizing maximizing the result, but minimizing the impact on Nick and the planning department staff on how to administer some of these grant programs in terms of using existing grant programs rather than creating something new and complicated. We felt best that it was, we already have lanes to sort of park in. So it was best to sort of follow those as opposed to creating something new and complicated to increase the burden on staff, and staff being Nick.
Here.
And we appreciate all that Nick does. Any other questions as it relates to this resolution? No? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous.
Oh, wait, but yes, that's fine.
It's a budget adjustment. It doesn't have a...
I know.
Yeah.
You'll see it again when we spend it, so.
Yeah. Yes. Nick, was there anything else on your front?
No, I don't have anything else, and it looks like you still have a few other important topics, so I will go ahead and free up some time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Abigail, we've got the report discussion on the FEMA firm process update ID 11593. I know that this is an important update, but would also ask for brevity in the process.
One slide for you, so I'm here for it.
So Nick may have lost the award for crispest presenter today.
Technically 3, but 1 content.
Sure.
Let's see if we get this started. I want to start with a disclaimer, per se, just to say that this FEMA firm update is a federal and state process. So I'm happy to give the update and I'm happy to answer any questions I can, but mostly I'm happy to take those questions and bring them to DEC and FEMA. We have established a pretty strong connection to some great folks. The DEC has a floodplain hub, and there's a great couple of people out there that have been answering all of our questions and some direct lines to FEMA as well, which is great. So I just want to take a look here at, let's see, I get rid of this. The timeline here, which some folks may have seen at that CCO meeting or in the documents you received from Thomas Song yesterday. But just to think about this whole process, just to get regrounded in what is happening here. So FEMA had their discovery meeting in 2014, looking at the fact that we had FEMA flood maps from the 1970s and 80s. That is what we currently have and are regulating against. That kickoff meeting came to Tompkins County with municipal officials in 2019. Just over a year ago, those draft preliminary maps came out, and that meeting came here in Tompkins County, I believe it was in the library, to discuss those with municipal officials. On January 18th, we received those preliminary firms. The CCO meeting happened on March 8th, and now I just want to look forward and see what's happening next for us. That open house is slated for this month, and I'll come back to that in just a second. In the summer, they're looking at that 90-day appeal period where folks can appeal their situations. A letter of final determination anticipated fall, winter 2023, so that really could be potentially January, February 2024. And our department, I just wanted to note this as an addition to their timeline. We've applied for a Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant through FEMA to do a flood insurance education and outreach event. Because we understand that one of the large implications here is those insurance costs and the education to understand what really is happening. And so then the effective date, the reason for our timeline there in early 2024 is the effective date is 6 months after that letter of final determination, but folks will be required to have insurance on their properties within 12 months after the letter of final determination, that effective date. Sorry, the effective date, not the letter of final determination. So I want to name in this that we do have some time. We're getting obviously more information. There's more, like FEMA is on the ground with us a little more, but we don't anticipate that those maps will be effective and final for 1.5 to 2 years. And just to note a little more on that, this next step in red here, the open house, we've been in conversations with FEMA, and what we are hearing is that these will be in April. They're looking at the last week of April. This is a national program that they run. It's budgeted at the national level. They do one open house. We have pushed them, and they will be offering 2 open houses in Tompkins County. So we're excited about that. That will be an opportunity for residents to come and have one-on-one conversations with a DEC or FEMA representative to have their personal questions answered about the process. We're looking to have some other county departments there, as well as municipal officials to answer folks' questions. That is what I have. I don't know if folks have questions. I might stop sharing so I can take note of.
Yeah. Any questions?
Well, I do, but you go ahead, Ann.
Mike. So Abigail, thanks for talking them into coming twice to do more, open houses rather than just once, which I know they were going to just wanted to do one. I just wanted to, you were mentioning about paying for insurance, and did you say it's 6 months or 12 months after the determination?
So after the letter of final determination is received by the municipalities, in six months after that is when those become final, and municipalities will have to update their codes, and that's when they will be effective. Then you have 12 months after that date.
12 months after that.
Within
Okay.
that 12-month period, folks will need to have insurance.
And what happens if they don't?
That will depend on their lenders, because those are required with a mortgage.
But if you don't have a mortgage, it's not required? It's
That is our
optional?
understanding. Yeah.
Okay. And I just wanted a quick mention, you said, people are very interested in, one of the reasons people are interested in this or most concerned is because of the insurance. I would hope people are also interested in, because this is kind of like a blueprint of here, this is what we know, these are areas that are more prone to flooding. So is that what you're hearing or not?
Not always. I think it is maybe to a disadvantage, very much tied to the monetary implications. And our hope with this education and outreach for flooding and insurance, that we're able to help folks better understand the risk factor that's attached to this as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mike?
I got several questions. So the number one is there any way to prevent these maps from taking hold? Is there anything we can do to stop that from moving forward? Because I know Binghamton, about 20 years ago, prevented theirs, and that was something that was possible.
Preventing them from taking hold, I can confirm that with DEC and FEMA folks. I think either way, if they take hold, the suggestions and in some of the code that comes down from the state, if there is no base flood elevation for certain locations, those maps are already in effect for those locations. In an area where there's been a change from, say, 500 to 100, those are not regulated. You can't regulate against those at this time. And I can look into with those folks what potentially stopping those looks like, but I think the data is published at the federal level, and the DEC is already telling municipal officials to, in the best interest of risk, to take that data into consideration.
Just also wondering, have they given you any indication about the level of insurance? I mean, are the people that are in the floodplain, these 850 homes particularly in Ithaca, are they going to be required to buy the same level? I mean, I'm hearing $4,000 a year, let's say. is that the same level of insurance that somebody on Long Beach Island, New Jersey has to, you know what I'm saying? I mean, Fort Myers, I mean, do we have to buy literally the same flood insurance they do?
I can confirm with them, but they've rolled out a newer program, this Risk Rating 2.0, which changes some of that, and they don't have as much data on that, which makes it a little harder for us to understand and for folks at the DEC to understand, but I can confirm that for you.
My last question kind of is, so Scott used to do stream stabilization. Who's doing that in the office now?
Some of that, I monitor some of those riparian buffers, but Darby Kiley is doing some of that work as well.
I'll call you both then.
Perfect.
So maybe we could have you on for May, just as a recap of if the open houses are happening the last week in April. And then Mike, maybe we can get together offline and talk about maybe a more robust conversation we could have at that meeting with some more time, if that makes sense. Because I think this is an issue, and if there is some advocacy or other work that we can do, we'd really like to know what that is.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
All right, Elliot, welcome. We have next on the agenda resolution scheduling a public hearing for 2023 New York State Community Development Block Grant Assistance ID 11584. If I could have somebody move that, please. Moved by Travis, seconded by Veronica. Elliot, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So DPS is requesting that the IAED committee recommend to the legislature a resolution authorizing a public hearing on Tompkins County community development needs and possible submission of any applications for 2023 Community Development Block Grant funding, or CDBG. The resolution also would authorize the clerk of the county legislature to place a public notice of the public hearing in the Ithaca Journal. We've provided a memo for you with more detail about the CDBG program. The public hearing would be held in anticipation of the release of a request for applications from the Office of Community Renewal for the 2023 CDBG housing program. DPS is working with our intended subrecipient, INHS, to plan an application for this year's round to carry out housing rehabilitation. This public hearing is a requirement of that application submission. And that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Seems like a relatively straightforward resolution, more procedural in nature than really anything. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, we have the item that was not on the agenda but added at the beginning of the meeting. This is resolution ID 11599, resolution authorizing the 2023 New York State Department of Labor and the Office of Employment and Training Ancillary Agreement. I know we have Christopher with us, who is, Taylor, is that you sharing or, oh, okay. So this was what was added to the agenda. If I could have somebody move that, Travis, seconded by Ann. And I don't know if, Christopher, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
Can you see me?
No, but we can hear you, which is okay. Your screen's black.
Okay, I think the camera covered here. There you go.
There you
I'm
are.
here. So I also have Diane, our fiscal coordinator, that's here.
Oh, hi, Diane.
Joining us. So really, this was actually, could you start out and explain it, Diane? This is actually already budgeted for us, but this is more like a procedure that we have to go through. Elise has to approve the funding, but Diane can kind of go over the history of this.
So this was in addition to last year when we had to pay New York State DOL for the back rent, and then we had to ask for funding to increase to the 1950s per square foot, and that consists of all the staff that is located at the Career Center and the shared space. And with the 9 staff and using 2,400 square feet, it's $4,700 per year for the rent.
Got it. And my understanding of this will be an annual, is this annual or is this a one-time, this is annual?
Yes, this is annual. This is what our rent is unless there's something that the landlord, increases to DOL, and then they will come back with us. And so we decided last year, well, county admin did, that we would do a yearly lease instead of doing an extended lease.
So Lisa, will we see this resolution each year?
Yes, and the leaseholder is DOL, correct? So by regulation, we have to co-locate with DOL. So if you'll recall, last year we went through and reconciled the payments, the back payments that were owed DOL based on square footage, et cetera, and we put this, we have budgeted for this and accounted for it in the current budget. So.
Okay. So this seems like just a procedural tidy since it's already happening. Any questions or comments for Diane or Christopher? Ann?
Just quick, are utilities separate from this, or does this include utilities?
This includes utilities, the electric, anything, like
the janitorial stuff.
Yeah.
Just associated stuff that goes with operations.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments on this resolution? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. Christopher, Diane, thanks for hanging out with us till the very end. Glad we could get this on and look forward to a more in-depth update and conversation with you folks in the next couple of months.
Oh, definitely. Thank you for having us.
All right, great. Thanks again. All right, if there's any committee member reports, I know we've come a couple minutes over. Appreciate folks hanging in there, but we did have a full agenda. Anything that anybody would like to get out there on the record while we have the moment? Veronica?
Real briefly, I sat in on the Homelessness and Housing Task Force meeting this morning and just want to share, someone updated that tomorrow morning online, I have lost the timing. It's in the afternoon. The HUD is having a Housing First quarterly update, which supposedly will have a lot of good information about it. Sorry, I can't remember the time, but if you go to huduser.gov and click events in the top right, it's the first one, and I hope someone can tune in.
Would you mind sharing that with the legislator list?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, then take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Travis, seconded by Mike. All those in favor? Great, that concludes our meeting for the month. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Greg and everybody.